more times after that? Yeah, how many times did you shoot him total? I don't know. So you shot him instead of calling 911? I did, because I knew he was going to die anyway.
So instead of calling 911 to potentially save him, she kills him. She ensures that he is dead. In my opinion, I believe she didn't want to risk Ryan surviving because then his side of the story would come out. Hello, my name is Crystal. Welcome to my channel. Hope you're having a great day. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any case recommendations, please leave them down below. Today we'll be discussing Shayna Hubers and the murder of Ryan Poston. Ryan was a smart, kind, loving, and family-oriented person. He was well-traveled and went to school in the United States, in the Philippines, and in Switzerland. He triple majored in history, political science, and geography. He then went to law school, and to me that sounds like a lot of schooling, but it was something that Ryan enjoyed and he was good at. He was determined to become an attorney. After passing the bar in 2011, his dream became a reality, and he did become an attorney in Cincinnati, Ohio. Shayna was a high achiever and she excelled academically. Her IQ was of a genius level, but people from her past do describe her as clingy, obsessive, and that she could be quite dramatic. She was someone who always needed to get their way, otherwise there would be hell to pay. So let's fast forward. It's 2011. Facebook is the big thing. It's the popular social media site. On Facebook, there's a friend suggestion, and that's when there's mutual friends, and Ryan saw Shayna there. She was mutual friends with his cousin, so he added her. Ryan was 28 and Shayna was 20 at the time, and they hit it off, so they started dating. Ryan and Shayna's relationship was all over the place, constantly on and off again, which to me that sounds quite exhausting. One night on October 12th, 2012, everything came to a head. Shayna made this 911 call that we're about to listen to.
Campbell County 911. Oh, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense. Okay, hold on. What did you kill him with? A loaded gun in the house. Tell me where the gun is right now. The gun is in the house. I laid it on the bookshelf. Where are you? I'm standing about 10 feet from his dead body. Okay, are you sure that he is dead? He's dead, ma'am. He's completely dead. I'm not a murderer, ma'am. I just killed him. What happened exactly? What happened? He beat me and carried me out of the house. He didn't. He beat me and tried to carry me out of the house, and I came back in to get my things, and he was right in front of me, and he reached down and grabbed the gun, and I grabbed it out of his hand and pulled the trigger. Okay. All right. Do you need an ambulance? Have you been injured? I'm not injured, ma'am. I was thrown into the side of the couch. Okay. Have you had a history of domestic violence with him? Yes. So he slammed you into the couch, but you don't have any injuries? I don't have any injuries. I was just very frightened. He's a lot bigger than me. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. I'm 5'8", 120. He threw me across the room, and I was very startled. I was laying on the floor. Okay. And I killed him. And then because he was twitching and I knew he was going to die anyway, and he was making funny noises, I shot him a couple more times just to kill him because I knew he would have been. I'm sorry, you said you shot him a couple more times after that? Yeah. How many times did you shoot him total? I don't know. Okay, because he was twitching and you knew he was going to die, so you shot him again? I had to make sure he was dead because he was twitching so bad and I didn't want to lay there and twitch. So you shot him instead of calling 911? I did because I knew he was going to die anyway.
At the beginning of the call, Shayna says she's not a murderer. She killed Ryan in self-defense. He was beating her. He threw her around the room. He threw her into a couch. But then when the 911 operator asked about her injuries, she says she doesn't have any. So that's a little suspicious. Then after shooting him when he didn't die on impact, she continues to shoot him a couple more times because Ryan was making noises and twitching. So instead of calling 911 to potentially save him, she kills him. She ensures that he is dead. In my opinion, I believe she didn't want to risk Ryan surviving because then his side of the story would come out. She even mentioned how much larger Ryan is than her, that he's throwing her around the room and beating her, but yet she was able to get the gun from his hands. To me, the story just isn't adding up. So the police arrived at the crime scene, they bring Shayna into the station, and they put her in an interview room. And that's where they read her Miranda rights, and she asks for an attorney. So at this point, they cannot ask her any more questions. But they don't need to, because Shayna doesn't shut up. For almost the entirety that she's in this interview room, She just does not stop talking. And she didn't like being alone in the interview room, so a police officer was almost always with her. She told the officer she didn't have any serious injuries, and even though she shot Ryan in self-defense, she could have had serious injuries if she didn't do what she did to protect herself. She said she could have had injuries like before. Shayna is stating that previously she's hit her head on the headboard, and that could have killed her. We're going to watch a few videos of her in this interview room, and you're really going to see her dig herself a hole.
And in the middle of him doing something with his arm or saying something crazy, shot him. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? You know, and he was laying with his face on the table, like twitching. And so I knew he was going to die a very slow and painful death. I knew he was already dead, you know, and within the next 20 seconds, within the next 2 minutes, I knew he was going to be dead. And he was in a lot of pain. He was twitching, he was moaning, but he was ultimately dead. And so I shot him enough times to kill him so that he wouldn't suffer at that point, which was a few more times. And I shot him, I think I shot him twice, thought he was completely dead, and he was laying there still, twitching and making noises. And I shot him in the head.
Shayna shot Ryan in total 6 times. I don't for 1 second believe that she shot him one time and then saw him twitching and heard him making noises, so she continued to shoot him to take him out of his misery. I believe she didn't get what she wanted in that moment, which we will later see, and because she didn't get her way, she killed him. So when she says that he was ultimately going to die, he was going to die because of her actions. She could have called 911, but she did not. She waited 15 minutes after shooting him to call 911. Let's watch the second video now.
I probably should have left it there, but I knew he was going to die. Mm-hmm. Or have a very deformed face.
And you were concerned.
And I knew, oh no, he would have died. He was already dying. He was dying. But I just walked around the table and shot him where I knew he would die immediately. And fast. His obsession with guns killed him. You know, I would have never, I'm so Democrat, I would have never touched a gun in my life until I dated.
His obsession with guns killed him. No, Shayna, you killed him. So she's now trying to blame the victim, her victim, that it's his fault that he is dead. She also says something interesting in this clip, and that's that he might have had a deformed face. So does that mean she slipped up and maybe he actually wasn't going to die? And we'll see that she accuses Ryan of being vain. I think she was vain. These clips are not going to get any better. They only get worse. But let's continue.
How sweet the sound that sings a rest.
Jodi Arias, is that you in the building? The similarities are scary. So Shayna's here humming Amazing Grace, you know, kind of singing. And it just creeps me out. We're going to continue to watch some other clips of her in this interview room. And to me, it seems like she thinks she's the smartest person in the room. It's almost as like she believes by telling her side of the story that the police will be on her side. Now, is her inability to stop talking out of nervousness, or is this just how Shayna is? Is this her personality? Let's continue.
He had put his arm across the table, and there's a lamp, and he had put his arm across the table and had it in my face and was screaming at me at the top of his lungs after he had thrown me around the room and was saying emotionally to me, "You're a f***ing hillbilly. I f***ing hate you. I hate everything about you for what you are and my family." And he was screaming it, and he had his hand on the table, and he wasn't completely standing up. He was like this.
So like,
He was sitting, he was enough that when I shot him, he went like this. Literally. That's when I knew he was dead. Or close to it, and twitching. And I let him, I still, even though it hurt, I still, enough of me loved him that I couldn't stand to watch him twitch. I knew he was going to die or have a completely deformed face. He's very vain. One of our last conversations we had that was good was that he wants my best friend who's a dentist to do his veneers and wants to get a nose job. Just that kind of person. And I shot him right here. I gave him his nose job. He wanted. I broke it.
So that was Shayna's attempt at humor in the situation. Ryan was vain and he wanted a nose job, so she gave him that nose job that he wanted. That's not funny. I don't think anyone watching, anyone who's ever heard this case, thinks that that is funny. She makes it seem like she did this for Ryan. She took him out of his misery. She continued to kill him to make herself feel better. And again, you hear her say that he would have died or had a deformed face. So that means that he might not have died if you called 911. But of course she couldn't. She had to wait. She needed him to die. And there's a lot of discrepancies in her story. So on the 911 call, she talks about how he was beating her, and then clarifies he threw her into the couch after saying he threw her across the room. This time in this interview room, she's saying that he threw her across the room. But yet she had no injuries. It just does not make sense. Let's now watch the next clip.
I'm not your typical murderer. No, I'm not someone that you see on that. You said you're just a hillbilly from Kentucky, and I am. I guess the hillbilly came out of me. I took up for myself. And if it matters now, it's the worst thing I've ever done my whole life. But I feel like it's sad that part of me doesn't feel bad about it. And a part of me does, you know what I mean? Part of me is like, he hit me, he threw me. You just don't treat a woman like that. I was in high school and she was a convicted felon. She told me that the women that she went for cocaine. She told me that the women that she got along with in jail or prison are the women that were there because they had killed their husbands. And said that hell has no fury like a woman's scorn. Never believed it until now.
Is she trying to make this officer laugh? I don't understand. What's Shayna's thought process in this? She keeps trying to crack jokes, and I don't know if it's to make herself feel better or to try to get some sympathy, some sort of reaction from the officers. Again, is this nervousness or is this her trying to get the officer on her side? And I think that it could be a little bit of both, but mainly she just wants an audience, and she wants that audience to believe her. Okay, we're moving on to the last clip from this interview room, and it's quite alarming.
I didn't do anything that was mean. I was begging him to stay in the relationship and be with me because I knew that we weren't really loving each other. Ryan had told me that he loved me and wanted to be with me. And I guess somewhere along the way, that grew to hate. He was screaming how much he hated me. I don't know if anyone will ever want to marry me if they know that I killed a boyfriend and self-defense. It's not funny, but the stuff he was saying to me was so abusive while he was throwing me around the room. I'll never forget this moment. I think in the midst of that, my love turned to hate. I remember screaming, reaching up to grab the shirt. You upstairs, you mock my family, I'm dead. Talk, please speak really of my mother and my family. If I don't get any serious consequences, then I could really be happy just having a career and maybe not even ever getting married. Because this is very traumatic, you know. It's very traumatic for me to live with it. I have to know that I did that for someone that I told every day, I love you. I did. Yes, I did. I can't believe I did that.
That last little bit of her saying, I did it, yep, I did, that's scary. And all I'm hearing is me, 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 me. No one will want to marry me when they find out that I killed my boyfriend. Probably not, no. But shockingly, there was, which we'll discuss later on. Shayna talks about how her love turned to hate. And I think that Shayna was just an obsessed girlfriend. And at this point, it was an obsessed ex, right? This is during one of their off times. And she just can't let go. Watching those clips, I just saw someone that was guilty. There's no remorse. She only feels bad for herself. She's cracking jokes about Ryan's death, about her future. She's already thinking about marriage with someone else, someone that's non-existent. When the investigators watched it, when they were digging through the crime scene, they also felt that Shayna was guilty. And she was arrested and charged with Ryan's murder. Her bail was set at $3 million, which she was unable to meet. Shayna pled not guilty, and the trial began on April 13th, 2015. The defense went with what Shayna said on the 911 call, that she murdered Ryan in self-defense. Based on the evidence, the prosecution believed that Ryan told Shayna he didn't want to get back together, and he never wanted to get back together. This breakup was permanent, and she couldn't handle it. So even though Ryan was ready to move on, and he actually was moving on, he took the steps to do so. He broke up with her. He started chatting to other women. And he was scared to tell Shayna that he moved on and that he actually had a date set up. He had an upcoming date with Audrey Bolt, who was 2012 Miss Ohio. And the night that he was murdered, he was actually set to meet up with her for drinks, which he never showed up to, and she just thought that he stood her up. But in reality, Shayna murdered him that night. Shayna did not take the stand in this trial. The jurors deliberated for only 5 hours, which doesn't seem like a long time. And they found Shayna guilty of Ryan's murder. Shayna's attorneys asked for leniency with the sentencing because she was a victim of DA. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that on YouTube, so I'm just going to say DA. The judge looked at all the evidence presented and determined that Shayna was not the victim that she was playing. And he sentenced her to 40 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Shayna's attorneys argued that Shayna didn't get a fair trial because witnesses and evidence that they submitted was denied. On August 27th, 2016, her appeal was granted, but it's not for the reason that her attorneys were fighting for. It was because one of the jurors was a convicted felon, and that's not allowed in the United States. I believe you also can't vote as a convicted felon. So because of this, Shayna was granted a second trial. And that second trial started on August 8th, 2018. We're now going to go over some text messages that the prosecution showed during this second trial.
Begging me to ask if you could do his veneers. But please F them up and make him ugly so he'll never get another girl. I hate him.
And what is the next exchange between yourself and Miss Hubers?
When I go to the shooting range with Ryan tonight, I want to turn around, shoot and kill him, and play like it's an accident.
That was Dr. Christy Euler, and that was the messages that Shayna sent her. She's a dentist and also friends with Shayna. And we again see this very dark side of Shayna. Asking her friend to F up his veneers so he can't get another girl. Why? So he's permanently stuck with you? She says that she hates him, so why fight the breakup? Everything needs to go according to Shayna's plan, or it's just not acceptable. Then in the second text message saying, I want to turn around and shoot him and pretend it's an accident. Anyone who's fantasizing about killing their partner needs help, or about killing anyone, they need help. And remember, it took her 15 minutes after the shooting to call 911. Is this because she was originally planning on pretending it was an accident? And then after realizing, oh, I shot him 6 times, there's no way I can play this off as an accident. So during that 15 minutes, was she just getting her story together? And that's where she came up with the abusive boyfriend story? In the second trial, Shayna does take the stand, and we're gonna watch some of that now.
He screamed at me, "You're a up person, and you're a person because you were touched when you were a little girl, and that's why you can't orgasm, and that's why I can't love you, and that's why no one will ever be able to love you." I remember trying to stand up where I was sitting on the floor, and Ryan pushed me back down by my chest. He put his hand on my chest and pushed me back down onto the floor, and I was crying, and I was hysterically crying, and I recall Ryan standing over me and grabbing the gun that was sitting on the table and pointing it at me and saying, "I could just kill you right now and get away with it. Nobody would even know."
How did you react to that?
I was shocked. I was afraid. I didn't understand what I had done to deserve any of this.
Okay. Tell the ladies and gentlemen, the jury, what happened.
He set the gun back down on the table, and he walked around the table, and he was still talking, and he was still saying hurtful things. I don't remember exactly what. And he was standing up from the chair, and he was reaching across the table, and I don't know if he was reaching for the gun or reaching for me, but I was still sitting on the floor at this point in time, and I got up off the floor, and I grabbed the gun, and I shot him.
In the 911 call, Shayna said that she took the gun from his hands. Now she's saying that she took the gun from the table because she wasn't sure when Ryan was reaching across the table if he was going for the gun. So again, her story changed. At the beginning of this clip, we hear Shayna talking about SA from childhood and DVDA. And I just have to say, if anyone in the world fakes these things happening to them, they need serious help because that's not okay. Real people do experience these things, and it is traumatizing. It changes their life forever. And I just can't imagine someone pretending to go through it. Like, what kind of evil do you have to be to play this character of someone who's going through these serious problems? Now, at the beginning of the clip, we also hear how she talks about not being able to orgasm, which reporters did call this the orgasm defense. She spoke about how Ryan would buy various, I guess, toys and things to try to help her, and that he made her get a shot of collagen into her vagina, which I don't know. That was her orgasm defense. We have another clip that we're going to watch, and that's the cross-examination of Shayna. The prosecution was waiting and ready. They said that this was 7 years in the working for them, and they were prepared. Let's take a look.
Hard for you, isn't it true, ma'am, when things end in a way that you don't want them to?
Sure, that's difficult for me.
If you would read those messages. What was the reason that you gave Mr. Poston for asking him to initiate sex with you?
I said I didn't want to force myself on him.
Any more? Was that also on there?
Yes.
Yeah, any more. You didn't want to have to force yourself on him.
Judge to repeat the
I'm sorry, I was withdrawn. Thank you, ma'am. What did he say? Tell the jury what he said to you.
I know you did, and I really appreciate all of it, but it really makes it that much more apparent to me that you should probably be pursuing a relationship with one of those guys you were telling me about a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
I'm not saying that my statements weren't coherent. I'm saying my mindset wasn't completely coherent.
But there were some things throughout the course of your statement that were consistent.
Okay.
And seeing him twitch and it being painful for you was one of those things that was consistent and said by you over and over again.
I said that.
And because you didn't want to watch him die, you shot him more times, in your words, to the point where you knew he was dead.
I said those things.
So I have to touch on it again, but this orgasm defense doesn't really make sense with those text messages. She's complaining that he doesn't initiate sex, that she feels like she's forcing herself on him, but her defense was that it was Ryan forcing himself on her. So they contradict each other. Shayna was trying to paint Ryan to be this villain, this evil, terrible man. And in the second text message, we kind of see that he wasn't. He was saying, listen, I appreciate it, but go be with one of those guys that you talked to me about. When I think there wasn't any other guys, I think she was just bringing people up to try to make him jealous. And it didn't work because he was over it. He was checked out of this relationship for a while. And he was politely trying to say, just go be with one of them. And there was thousands of text messages exchanged between Shayna and Ryan. And throughout those messages, it wasn't Ryan being the villain that the defense tried to craft it as. Just like the first trial, in the second trial, the jurors deliberated for the same amount of time, just 5 hours. They found Shayna guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 17 years, which means that Shayna will actually be eligible for parole in 2032, which is crazy because that's only 7 years away. I don't think Shayna should be released. She scares me. So as we talked about in the interview, when she says that she's not sure if she'll ever get married because she killed her boyfriend, she did get married in prison to an inmate. On June 7th, 2018, Shayna married Unique Taylor, who was a fellow inmate. But the marriage didn't last long and they are divorced now. A judge granted their divorce. So today was another dark, twisted, disturbing story of a jealous and obsessive partner. That's all I have for you today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any case recommendations, please do leave them down below. I hope you have a great day. Bye.